Seattle going into Detroit. I got a text this morning saying a ton of money is coming in on Seattle. We're going to talk about that game in depth, plus a bunch of NFL and college football. Welcome, everybody, to WagerTalk Today. Ralph Michaels joining us right off the bat. Ralph, always a pleasure. Excited to have you. How are you, my friend?
Doing great. Exciting weekend of football. Got it going last night with some NFL and college football games. Looking forward to another great weekend.
Sure. Football Friday, my friend. Let's get right into it, Ralph. Iowa, Western Michigan, the game that's on your radar today. And it certainly makes sense to me because we're talking about the total in this contest. Not just the total, the first half total for Iowa and Western Michigan. 23.5, the current number. What do you want to do with it, Ralph? We going over or under?
Well, let's remember this, Ted and Prez and Teddy. We're talking Iowa. You have to be thinking under. Since 2019, if you blindly bet every Iowa game under the total, you have won 65.3% of the time. Since 2019, if you blindly bet every Iowa home game, you have won 69.2% of the time. And yes, this offense is bad. Yes, the offenses were bad. Of those 27 home games that went under the total 69%, the average line was 43.6. So we're not talking about inflated lines. We're talking about Iowa lines we're accustomed to. Now, I actually like Iowa in this game. And I understand people would say, well, how can you lay 28.5 points with an offense that has been pitiful this year? 284 yards against Utah State, 24 points. Iowa State, 235 yards, getting 20 points. But Cade McNamara has not been 100% healthy. He finally practiced 100% this past Tuesday. So I think Iowa does get going this week, but I think they will get off to a slow start. They're happy to run the ball. 36 carries against Utah State, 29 carries against Iowa State. And Western Michigan, let's see. Last Saturday, I went 6-1. My one loss was Syracuse and Western Michigan over the total. The game was 45-7 at half with a total of 56, and the game loses. Why? Western Michigan couldn't do anything. Syracuse pulled all their starters, just ran the ball. But you look at Western Michigan's performance against Syracuse, 315 yards. They did score a touchdown. But 75 yards of that came on the second play of a game on a fullback run that he exploded. So I think Western Michigan does what they have to. It's a difficult spot having gone to Syracuse, now back-to-back weeks going to Iowa. They're going to run the ball. We know that. We know they're going to give up a fair amount of run. I like Iowa, Western Michigan under the first half. And remember, this is such a unique situation because Kirk Ferentz, the head coach, his OC, of course, is his son. And the AD this summer said to him, well, listen, we're cutting your pay. We're going to give you one more shot. But if you don't average at least 25 points per game, we're going to take the next step and perhaps replace you. So they're only averaging 24 points per game. You know that's going to be in the offensive coordinator's mind in the second half, that he has to get a good performance. So I'm basing this play, the under, on the first half. But even though the line is crazy at 28.5, I do lean with Iowa as well.
So Western Michigan's defense gave up 45 points in the first half last week, right? Do we trust them? How can we trust them to get stops here? Because that's my biggest – conceptually, I'm with you. I just don't know if this stop unit's actually capable of getting any stops.
To me, Teddy, it's the pace of play and the plays per game. Syracuse comes out a ball of fire. They're not able to make changes on the defense. Iowa's offense plays nowhere near that place. They make replacements almost every down. So to me, yes, the defense got shelled, but it'll be a different defense at a much slower pace and a relaxed play where the DC can make adjustments versus the Iowa's offense. Couldn't do that at all last week.
10 out of 10 on answering Teddy's question there.
Yeah.
What did you think, Jay? Yeah, that was great.
That's people are like, I'm crossing. I mean, no, man, it's an opportunity to look good, and that's a really good answer to that question, Ralph.
Yeah,
that's exactly the right answer. It made you look smart, and it made me say, hey, I'll buy Ralph's play.
Okay, Teddy. Well, I think how much is that play, Ralph? Oh, wait, it's free. Damn, I wanted Teddy to pay you. Welcome, everybody, to Wager Talk today. We got such a good show for you guys. Ralph's got a chart coming up next. Then he's going to dig deep into the Seattle-Detroit game. Andy Lang will be joining us. He's got 3 prop bets. And, of course, we'll end the show with the great Art DiCesare, Teddy's Big Game Breakdown. So much more. If you like what you're hearing, please take a second, guys, and hit that like button. It's so appreciated. Subscribe to our channel as well. That would be great. Ralph, you've got a chart for us. I'm just going to kick back and learn.
It's not a wild chart. It's not a complicated chart. You're not going to base a play on it, but it's just explaining situations in the NFL from game number 1 to game number 2. You see the chart has 2 halves. The top half, if you won game 1, the bottom half, it says P:, that means previous. You lost as a home favorite, you lost as a home dog. So I have all 4 situations with teams winning on the top, all 4 situations with team losing on the bottom. And I went back since 2017 to give us a 5-year sample size. The biggest thing is the top line, and it has the most games, and it's simply this. If you are an NFL team and you won your season opener as a home favorite, you blindly, just playing against those teams, you've won 77.6% of the time. So if you win as a home favorite, you've been a negative play week 2. If you lost as an away dog on the very bottom, you've been a negative play. And the only 2 positives, if you won game 1 as an away favorite, you see 61%. And if you lost as a home dog in game 1, you have actually gone 65.2% against the spread. So some of those make sense to me. Some are shocking to me. You win as a home favorite. You think you have momentum going into game 2. That's a pretty strong number for game number 2, fading those teams.
Yeah, it sure is. Of course, home teams only went 4-12 ATS last week, Ralph. So there aren't many home favorites who won the game. Can you throw that chart back up real quick, Dan? I want to reference it one more time while I'm talking to Ralph and asking the follow-up right here. Because I've got a theory, and I have no idea if it's right or wrong, but it's just a theory as to why the top line and the bottom line of this chart are very, very negative between them. All right. The top line, we talk about if you won as a home favorite, well, those teams tend to be a little bit fat and happy. They tend to be a little bit overvalued in the markets. When you win and cover as home chalk, when you win as home favorites, week 1, you get betting market attention. So therefore, the following week, those teams not as good. Similarly, if you're losing as a road dog week 1, those might be some of the worst teams in the league. The markets may not have caught up to how bad they are just yet. Do you think there's that theory has any weight, Ralph, or maybe not so much?
I agree with the win, no question. The losing as an away dog, I was trying to look real quick. How you figure the NFL schedules most teams home and away weeks 1 and 2. So most of those teams are at home. And we know that those teams that are at home as small home favorites have been a negative the last few years. So I'm going to guess they just happen to fit in that category. Not a real answer where I can dive in, Teddy, and add something astute to those numbers. I went through and nothing popped out to me, but I didn't do a deeper dive to see if those teams were a favorite or a dog that lost as an away dog. Again, we're talking 32 games. We're talking over 5 years. So we're talking, six teams a week, which makes sense. In the NFL, you have 16 road teams, and 6 of those each year lose as an away dog and playing the next week.
Ralph Michaels, outstanding. We love having these charts, brother. Let's get into some NFL. I literally did wake up this morning to a text from a source of mine. Big money support for the Seahawks. He also told me that there's 2 safeties out for the Texans, and he likes the Colts. But that's a different story. That was my first text this morning. Then I pop in, and it's like, Ralph wants to talk Seattle and Detroit. Then he tells me he wants to talk the side. And then he tells me he wants to talk the total. So, Ralph, just talk.
Well, Prez, you were right. My initial thought was that I was going to like Seattle. And I'm just looking at the situation here. Yes, it may be the most contrarian play. I mean, if you're Joe Public and you watch Detroit beat Kansas City and now have extra rest, and Detroit has revenge, and Seattle had, 12 yards in the second half against the Rams, only 13 first downs. But again, week 1 to week 2 in the NFL, are there so many overreactions? Did Detroit deserve to win? Absolutely. Did they need the pick 6 to get them there? Yes, they did. Was KC without Kelsey? Very late notice? Yes. Does any team miss Kelsey more than any receiver? Maybe not. We see them play well. But the one thing that did jump out to me was Detroit last year was a man-to-man defense. They almost played man-to-man 100% of the time. They're changing that this year, and I think that's going to help them on the back end. Now, Seattle's not as bad as they looked, getting crushed 30 to 13 last week. And as I said at halftime last week, the yardage was 168 to 169. They got outgained by 1 yard in the first half, and they had a 13-7 lead. So that means in the second half, they got outscored 23 to nothing, and they got outgained. I can't do the math that quick. 236 to 12. And what happened? They lost both offensive tackles. I'll tell you what, guys, any NFL team that loses both offensive tackles and you have Aaron Donald lined up against you and still a very good starting Rams defensive front, you're going to have issues. And that's part of the reason here. I didn't get the report till now for Seattle. I was going to play Seattle, but one offensive tackle is now on the IR. The second is questionable and didn't practice Wednesday. I think Detroit is still going to try to run. They ran the ball 34 times. They like what they get in Montgomery. They like Gibbs, the speed burner at rookie, to replace him. Those two combined for 28. I think with Seattle, you're going to continue a lot of the short passes. Kenneth Walker could only run the ball 12 times because they got down. So I'm going to play the under here. And again, I did lean with Seattle, but no way am I betting my money or any customer's money on a team likely missing both starting offensive tackles.
Well, Michaels, I have a quick follow-up, and then Teddy's welcome to jump in as well. Listen, Cincinnati is playing Baltimore this weekend, and Baltimore is missing one tackle, the center, and their running back. It's a similar situation that's going on in Cincinnati and Baltimore. Would you like the under there or Cincinnati?
Well, week 1, we talked about this last week or a couple weeks. Week 1 in the NFL has been under for the last 10 years. What happened this week? 4 overs, 12 unders. Let me tell you this. Week 2 in the NFL, if you go all the way back since 2017 and bet every week 2 game under the total, you have won 57.1%. 79 overs, 105 unders, and 8 pushes in game 2. If you have a division game in game 2, like Cincinnati, Baltimore, Houston, Indy, San Fran Rams, Miami, New England, New Orleans, Carolina, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, the over-unders since 2000, Prez, 23 years, division games, game number 2 in the NFL, 97 and 161. That's 37.6% to the over. So that's 62.4% to the under, just blindly betting early season division games.
Teddy?
That's a pretty strong long-term angle.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking about the sample size of a year or two here. We're talking about the 21st century, saying these games. Would you blindly play them, Ralph? I mean, we're talking about under. I mean, obviously, the Seattle-Detroit, what we're talking about here isn't a divisional matchup. But when you're talking about a long-term sample size, cashing in a 63% clip over more than a 20-year span, is that something that's strong enough for you to say, every time I see it, I'm going to bet it?
No, but I'll tell you what, I'm likely not to get to an over in those games. It's enough to keep me off the situation. Right. But, if I like the under, this just makes it stronger. So it's not to the blindly playing it stage, but it's certainly to the likely eliminating the overside, having the under still in the mix, and see if they can become strong enough to become a play.
Ralph Michaels, you're on an 8-2, 5% run in football. You've got a 5% play for Saturday, a 5% play for Sunday, and you've got a promo code to give out. What is it?
Yeah, my first regular season 5%, and only the third time in 6 years that I've had a 5% on Saturday and a 5% the next day on Sunday. So excited. It's just the way the cards worked out. And I really want you on board. I'm off a 6-1 college football Saturday, an 8-2 Saturday and Sunday in NFL and college football combined.
Nice.
And with code RALPH50, RALPH50, you get 50%, a 30-day all access. So you're getting 30 days for under $5 a day. Get my baseball, get my NFL, get my college football at a very discounted price, and get 2 5% this weekend.
There we go, Ralph Michaels, everyone. Thanks for joining us, my friend. I hope the ball bounces in the exact spot you need. Teddy covers. What did we learn in the wonderful world of sports betting?
We got to talk about Philly, Minnesota. And I want to talk about my thought process behind the bet that I made last night for the clients and myself on the Eagles and the Vikings. So my parity number for the game is -8. And it opened -7.5, -8. And bettors grabbed the hook. I get it. That's the winning betting strategy. 7, probably the right line. And at 7, it was an easy pass for me. And then it got bet down to 6.5. And it got bet down to 6. And at 6, you got to take another look at the game. So you start looking, you're like, geez, the Vikings 11-0 in one-score games last year because they get hammered when they lose. They're winning all the one-score games, but not the two-score games. I thought, look, there's a lot of money coming in for the concerns about Philadelphia's injuries in the secondary, but Minnesota just lost their starting center, Bradbury, and Philly's defensive line is a dominant unit. That's going to be every bit the problem that Philly's secondary injuries are. I watched Pat's Eagles pretty closely, and I graded it more Pat's good than Philly bad on both sides of the football. The offense wasn't that sharp. I don't think that was a problem. The defense, well, if you can blow up the line of scrimmage, your injuries in secondary don't matter much, and I thought that Philly would be able to do that. All right, so I'm going to bite for myself, make the bet at -6, advise the clients to do the same. And it's 27-7. I'm feeling pretty good. Minnie has 4 turnovers. Philly has a 30 to 13-minute time of possession edge and a 15-0 rushing first down edge. They finished the game 19-0 at the time. And look, we got lucky. Minnesota fumbled in the end zone, but Philly had, what was it, like 30-something yard touchdown call back on penalty and ended up punting on 4th and 34 on that same drive. Didn't get a field goal. So, it's mitigating circumstances. So we're up 27-7, and then all of a sudden, Philly's injuries in the secondary start to bite. And it's a sweat. And I know Minnesota's going to fight. I haven't forgotten the Bills-Vikings game from last year, a truly epic Cousins comeback that was kind of similar to last night's game. And we end up pushing. Philly doesn't go for 2 after they get the TD to go up 12. It was very odd late in the game. And I was disappointed. Sure, I thought I was going to cash. But I can't be disappointed in my process. It wasn't a bet at -7, and it was a bet at -6. And when I'm seeing the difference, that feels pretty good. So no harm, no foul. Remember, every half point matters. Last night, the half point matters a lot. There were even some bettors out there that were able to lay 5.5 with the Eagles at post at Circa here in Las Vegas. So that's what I learned last night, Lawrence. What about you?
Well, I have a question, Teddy.
Shoot.
Do you want them to go for it? So do you want to win or lose or push?
So at the time, I want them to go for it, to go up. When all's said and done, I'll take the push. But at the time, when you're sitting there up 12, go for 2. I mean, it's not as a football prognosticator who watched a ton of it. That's what you do in that spot. And they didn't last night. And it ended up being a push. All's well and done. No harm, no foul. But yeah, I'd rather have a decision. I'd always rather have a decision.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because I'm so with you. In the moment, go for it. Let's win this bet. Hindsight, just kick the damn field goal and let me go to sleep. So it's one of those things, ace king versus ace king, and you run out. Anyway, screw the analogies. Teddy, I got a promo to give out myself. It's Prez 3, Prez 3. It's all access 3-day pass for only $49. And I've got 1 bet going tonight in college football. I've got 3 bets going tomorrow in college football. And I have a 7-pack of NFL. It'll likely be more once I start adding my prop bets. I already do have my first prop bet. And on top of that, I had a shitty weekend last week. So I'm thinking I'm going to have a really big weekend this week. So try take advantage of that. Buy low and then sell me on Monday when I'm high. I love being high, by the way. Anyway, Prez 3, Prez 3, $49. Please join me. Teddy, are you up? Are you locked and loaded for the weekend? Are you ready to roll?
I am. So I'm mostly locked and loaded. I think I'm going to add a little bit more college football right after the show. There were still 2 plays that I was debating when we came on, and I'm going to sift through them one more time and see if we get one, both, or neither up.
Okay. Andy Lang joining us. Andy freaking Lang. You won your 5% last week. Way to go, bro.
Thank you. That was quite the promotion there, Press. There was a lot going on. I have a ton of plays. Last weekend was terrible. I'll be high on Monday. Go grab the plays.
No. Just for the record, I'll be high tonight too. And tomorrow.
Of course. Yep, absolutely.
Just for the record, bro. I like the way you've matched your shirt with your eyes, you sexy devil. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
3 prop bets, you handsome man. First is Proc. Oh, Prez. That's what Kelly says all the time. Oh, Prez. Brock Purdy. What do you got for us?
This is the gift that keeps on giving. Brock Purdy, over 1.5 TD passes. He's gone over this total in every game that he started and finished in the regular season. Really, the only game he really hasn't gone over was the game against the Cowboys in the playoffs. And this is just one of those rinse and repeat. You keep getting good numbers on this, and you just keep playing it. He doesn't throw the ball a ton, but when he does, he's efficient, and it goes in the end zone. The Rams, they held Seattle to 112 yards and 1 touchdown pass last week. They held the ball for 39 minutes. I don't think they're going to hold the ball for 39 minutes against the 49ers. I do like that his weapons are healthy right now. Ayuk is healthy. Debo is healthy. McCaffrey is healthy. It appears Kittle is over his injury. So this is just, don't overthink it. Brock Purdy, over 1.5 touchdown passes. We're getting a good price. We just keep playing it, and he keeps getting there.
So I've got to ask you, what do you make of the second half of Rams Seahawks last week? Because when you talk, that was
the end of the Seahawks season.
Well, it was LA looked like a different team than we thought they were going to look. All right. On the defensive side of the football, they looked like a way different team than we would. I don't think the Seahawks had a first down after halftime. They might have had 1. Does that concern you that maybe LA's defense is a good notch or 2 better than people thought it was going to be? I understand Purdy, you ride him. You're riding this guy. But are we worried about LA? Because they blew up every play in the second half. There wasn't anyone for Geno to throw to. There were no holes to run. It was absolute domination at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and the offensive line of Seattle is just really bad, and it's banged up, obviously. And the San Fran, they're healthy. Now I will say this about the offensive line of San Francisco: they're one Trent Williams injury away from not being that good. But for now, their offensive line is dominant, and they just have way more weapons. McCaffrey can do it on the ground; he can do it through the air. And I love the Kyle Shanahan offense. He always seems to be a little bit ahead of the other team. So I think we probably, I don't want to say we, I thought the Rams defense would be way worse. They're better.
Yeah. Still
doesn't mean they're good enough to slow down San Francisco here. And again, It's just, Purdy just gets there. So I'm going to try and not overthink it. I've burned myself by overthinking things. So on this play, just play it every week. You're probably going to get there more times than not.
Andy Lang, before we get into the next game, a Frank Raposo, a really great guy, listener, is here every day. But he's mocking me. Buy my picks, I'll be doing drugs the next few days. So firstly, I was referring to being high as in emotionally high and my bank account being high. And secondly, Drugs are something a pharmaceutical company throws down your throat, not something God gifts the world. So come on, old man. That is not drugs, bro. It's not drugs. Drugs is like Tylenol, aspirin, Ozempic, and all. Where do they come up with these stupid names? There's a new one. Like the names of the drugs that these pharmaceutical companies, they must be on weed when naming their drugs. Anyway, I digress. Joe Burrow, bro, what do you got?
Pretty short analysis here. Give me under on his rushing. There was one play that I was absolutely kicking myself that I did not play. It looked too easy, and it was Joe Burrow under his rushing last week. He's coming off of a calf injury, and he didn't try to run the ball at all. There was one play in particular where he got outside the pocket, and there was a linebacker maybe within 7 yards of him, and he just kind of threw it a little bit into the ground. He got credited with one rush attempt. That was a kneel. Listen, they put out the line again. I'm stunned. It's 9.5. I even saw 10.5. Listen, Jamar Chase said it best. We need Joe Burrow in week 6, 7, 8, that playoffs. We do not need Joe Burrow to be running around the field with a bad calf. So I'm just going to play Joe Burrow under for a couple more weeks until I see that his calf is healed. So it's just a play on an injury that I can't believe the books put out a line on.
Do you ever worry with these? I mean, this is one of those one scramble kills you. You know, is it a positive expectation play even if one scramble kills you?
For this one with an injury, yes. I watched a lot of that Bengals game, and he was hobbling around. I know the weather wasn't that good, but I would be stunned if he tried to take off and run. And yes, it is a little worry because one scramble can do it. He has done it before. I just don't think he's doing it on this bad calf. So I'm willing to roll the dice that he does not take off. He may not even run once.
Andy Lang. You like Brock Purdy over 1.5 touchdown passes, and you have a prop bet for us on George Kittle. 2 in the same game. What is it?
Well, you're taking George Kittle under 38.5 receiving. George Kittle, he either goes way under or way over. This is very Gabe Davis-esque for the Bills. 6-3 to the under. You know, like if you have Gabe Davis on your fantasy team, you know you're going to get 3 points or 24. There's no in between. You're never getting like 10 points from Gabe Davis. Well, Kittle's kind of the same way. 6-3 to the under in games that Brock Purdy has started. The games he went over his total, he had 95, 120, and 93. And in all of those games, he had a catch of 31 yards or more. This total is at 38.5. He only had 19 yards last week. He was also dealing with an injury last week. He's probably good to go. I don't know if he's 100%, but last year the Rams were 11th best defending tight ends. And this is kind of one of those plays where you play it every week, kind of like Brock Purdy, because Kittle's a really nice target inside the red zone, but Purdy just doesn't go to him a whole lot. So I will keep playing Kittle under this 38.5. If he goes under again, you're going to get a much lower number next week. So I'm going to take advantage of this number, hope he goes under. And once they start lowering the number, probably stay off of it. But for this week, yeah, Kittle under 38.5.
Andy Lang.
Purdy over 1.5 touchdowns. George Kittle
Teddy.
under 38.5 receiving yards. Andy Lang, great analysis. Always appreciate your time. You've promoted already. Lawrence, how do I close him?
Just shut the door on his face. There we go.
Great.
Andy, keep kicking ass, brother. We love having you on every Friday. Andy has a premier spot on WagerTalk Today, and rightfully so. I love hearing what he has to say, and I speak to him regularly throughout the week. This guy works his tail off finding props. And Teddy, you know this. It's one thing to take apart games. Multiply that by 50 when you're taking apart prop bets, and your window is tighter. So, Andy Lang, the amount of work he puts in is unbelievable. My brother, it's your big game breakdown time. What do you got?
Let's talk a little NFL Sunday for today's big game breakdown. This is a 3% client play, the Chiefs and the Jaguars. Look at the WagerTalk live odds screen right now. We have a little bit of a split line for this game. An open, there were threes out there. There were three, and the markets moved to 3.5 yesterday. Today, we're seeing a split between the 3.5s and the 3. So if you want to lay -3 with KC, you can right now. If you want to take 3.5 with Jacksonville, you can right now. I'd rather lay it with KC, plain and simple. Look, Chris Jones being back makes a difference, especially when we're talking about Jacksonville's offensive line. This is an offensive line that was very problematic in week 1. I expect it to be problematic moving forward. And when you talk about KC's potential to blow up the line of scrimmage in this ballgame, I think that's a problem for Trevor Lawrence and company. We talk about home field edge. Home field edge doesn't matter. Okay, it really does. 4-12 ATS home teams in week 1, and then a push in the Thursday night opener. If you're making bets saying, oh, they're at home, they're going to do something, that's, in my mind, obsolete thinking. This is what's not obsolete thinking. Andy Reid off a loss. 7-0 against the spread the last 7 tries. 6 of those wins coming by more than a field goal. When you throw in a matchup advantage for KC at the line of scrimmage, potentially on both sides of football, but certainly the KC defensive front against the Jags offensive front is advantage Kansas City. And yeah, we're laying a little bit of a price, but I'll take the defending champs off a loss. You can read full analysis on my page over at WagerTalk.com and look for the Chiefs to win this one by a field goal or more. There's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Lorenzo.
Teddy covers. Let's hear Art's thoughts on this game. Art DiCesare joining us, and I'm told you're in your toilet.
My toilet. No, you might just be really high, Prez.
No, dude. Dan just slacked me saying Art DiCesare is here and he's in his toilet. What is up with me being high, bro? Like, I don't.
It's a real point of contention today. Yeah.
And so you're not in your toilet?
No, false.
Okay. Are the Jags going to be in their toilet?
Wow, this is an interesting game. I mean, obviously there was a lot of 2.5 sitting out there. And then obviously the Chris Jones news, people thinking Kelsey's going to play. How can the Chiefs start 0-2? So no shock that the Chief money came in. Chief money has now pushed that game to 3 and then 3.5. And that was sharp people who saw the 2.5 and just took the chance and said, we expect these things to happen. And then eventually the public will get on Kansas City and they'll lay the 3.5 because that's what they do. A lot of times they get the worst of the number.
Art, in keeping with the toilet analogies, I woke up this morning to a text. Yeah, Teddy, you roll your eyes all day long, baby. We're literally, Dan and I spoke yesterday. We are putting together a reel of your facial expressions. It's gonna blow up. Yeah, exactly. There you go, Kermit the frickin' Frog. So I woke up this morning and I found that there was a money dump on Seattle. Will they wipe the asses of Detroit this week?
So that game's interesting, right? We were sitting 5.5. We even hit 6 at one point. And then you did see some Seattle money come in, and that's pushed that game back to 4.5. One of the really big moves on that game was the total. The total was an opener of 51. Now down to 47.5. I mean, to see an NFL total that's being played indoors, there's not weather, there's not wind, for it to go down 3, 4, 4.5 points, you usually see that in college, the way a total moves like that. So that to me stood out, but public is going to be on Detroit. I don't think there's any question. Detroit will probably be one of everybody's money line parlay legs. We will definitely be rooting for Seattle on Sunday.
All right, the Caesar says, watch out. The public's on Detroit. The books will be on the Seahawks. And speaking of the books, I mean, how did the Westgate do last Sunday? Because it felt, from my standpoint, I want to just do a little recap before we look forward. It felt from my standpoint, the pros had a pretty good weekend and the Joes had a pretty good weekend. Did it work out that way, or did Sunday night, Monday night end up working out for you and make some of that money back? But Sunday's action, it felt like both the pros and the Joes did pretty well.
Yeah, I always tell people this because, you get on Twitter and you always hear these, this one. Every book's different, folks, and everyone operates different and just the way it's going to be. We did fine at the Westgate. Everything was fine for us. We had a really good weekend. That's all. It wasn't the best weekend of all time, but it was still a winning, positive weekend. So we were happy to start the NFL season off on the right foot.
So we've talked the Chiefs, Jaguars. We've talked Seahawks, Lions. What else stands out to you on the NFL card for Week 2? Once again, who are the pros betting, and what game do you think is going to be on all the parlay cards this week?
Yeah, I think when you look at this week, I know you guys had mentioned that Baltimore and Cincinnati game. That's obviously a very popular game because it's two of the best teams. Obviously, Burrow and that team's very popular. I think Cincinnati's going to be popular with the public this week, so keep an eye on that. I think two games that are really interesting from overreaction line flip standpoints. In a look-ahead line, Chicago was 1.5. Now they're 2.5-point underdogs to Tampa Bay. Well, obviously, Week 1 in Minnesota. Chicago did not look good at home against Green Bay. Green Bay is in their heads, though. That's just the way it is. So I think now with the almost 4-point move on Chicago, we did see when we hit 3 that some pro bettors took Chicago at the 3. Now that we're at Tampa favored, no one wants to lay the favorite with Tampa, thinking how can they be favored? Monday night, you go to Cleveland. Cleveland basically was a 1-point underdog on the look-ahead line. They opened pick, then it was 1, then it was 2, then it was 2.5. So Cleveland now kind of an overreaction. They won Week 1. They beat Cincinnati. Obviously, Pittsburgh looked awful. So Pittsburgh now getting 2.5 at home divisional dog. I think both Pittsburgh and Chicago are teams that look to turn it around, and Sharps will eventually get involved with them. And now both those teams are going to be in teaser legs because you can move them through the 7.
Listen to that info from Arthur DiCesare at ArtDice21 on Twitter. He is an outstanding follow. If you like this type of analysis, folks, give us a like. If we get to 100, Lawrence will give us a presidential address before
I got
this
one
show
ready.
is through. We appreciate all the likes, all the follows. And, of course, if you like this content, please subscribe to WagerTalk TV on YouTube. Art, let's talk a little college football. Friday night, 3 games tonight. Anything stand out to you? Where's the money flowing? And then we'll talk about Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, a tough college slate. Next week is incredible. This week, it's hard to find games that you even want to put on TV. But a couple of the games tonight have seen good under money come in. That Virginia-Maryland game, that was as high as 50, now 47.5. And the Army-UTS game is interesting. We opened UTSA at -11, and the total was 47. Now, obviously, Frank Harris III, the quarterback of UTSA, has got some injury concerns. He'll probably end up playing, but I think people were happy early to take Army at the 11 and the 10. First of all, low total, and you're getting double-digit points, so they saw that. And then the total got pushed down from 47 to 44.
Sure. So for Saturday's card in college football, you talked about how it's one of these weeks where every favorite's a 3-touchdown favorite. And do the bettors, do they swing for the big dogs? I see bettors taking big dogs in college a lot of times more than big favorites, certainly when it comes to the public. Do you see that as well? And does anything stand out to you for this weekend on the college football slate for Saturday in terms of pros or Joes where the support is coming?
Yeah, it's interesting in the college ranks, right? It's either someone puts together an 8 or 10 team, all the biggest favorite money line parlays, trying to get to even money or a little bit above even money on their bet. Or like you said, they take a swing. Maybe they take a swing with like Rice last weekend, or a team that's in the 7 to 13 point range as an underdog, thinking they could win the game outright. So you really see two different styles when it comes to the college. A couple of interesting ones in college this week. South Alabama took a lot of money early. They're at Oklahoma State. That opened 8.5. It's now 7. So sharp bettors took 8.5. They took 8. They even took 7.5. So you've seen the money there. Tennessee, Florida is probably the game that's got the two biggest teams, and that's the one game you would put on TV and want to watch. When Florida was +7, the public was happy to take the 7. We even saw a couple of sharp bettors, but the public wanted to take Florida, just thinking, hey, this team always wins in the swamp. They always beat Tennessee. Tennessee hasn't won there in like 2 decades. And Tennessee, despite being ranked in the top 10, 11, or 12, they haven't looked that sharp this year. Obviously, they're replacing Hooker at quarterback, and they're breaking in a lot of new pieces. So now we're sitting Tennessee 6, which is interesting. I think eventually some people will get involved with Tennessee, but we haven't seen anyone that sharp yet get involved with Tennessee at 6.
And certainly Tennessee -6 in the swamp, and historically out of range point spread. We don't see Tennessee laying points in the swamp very often. Art, I just want to touch on MLB real quick, before we let you go. I know Lawrence has a question as well about betting. But when it comes to baseball down the stretch, number one, how's the action? Number two, who's everyone? Are people just betting the Braves every day, or what's going on in baseball? Who's the attractive sides these days?
They do bet the Braves every day, but, it's always that thing, right? After, like, a team clinches a division or clinches a World Series, or clinches a playoff spot, and obviously the Braves just clinched the other night, you kind of lay off them for the next day or two because, they're in celebration mode and all that type of stuff. Obviously the baseball betting really takes a back seat now. I've always said this. I've said this for years on your guys' show. The people who've been betting since April, they're going to bet. They're going to bet through the end of October, and that's just the way they are. They're everyday baseball bettors, and they love to grind out baseball. Obviously, there's a huge series this week. I mean, you got Tampa in Baltimore, basically for the division. Tampa won game 1 last night, basically cut that lead down to 1, 1.5, 2 in the loss column. So that's for the division. That's a 4-game set. Game 2 tonight. Tampa -132. Take back on Baltimore +112. We saw really good action on that game yesterday, and probably will be the same today because that is an important game, obviously, for the baseball playoffs and division moving forward.
Art DiCesare joining us. Follow him at Art Dice on Twitter. Art, so I'm at poker last night. Don't want to talk about how it went, but not well. Anyway, one of the guys started talking about parlays, and we talk about this a lot, and he's like, parlays are, I think you're wrong, Lawrence. Parlays the way to go, blah, 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 blah. And then I said, hey, I had this guy on my show, Art DiCesare, works at the Westgate, high up guy, knows his stuff. He came on here and he said they pretty much salivate over parlay bettors. And he responded with, things have changed now, given that you can cash them out. So I don't know if Westgate does cash outs or whatnot, but it feels like people are just buying into this parlay concept, especially when they can win 2 legs and cash out before the third goes. Have you noticed anything like that? And can you firmly tell us your thoughts on parlays, which I'm happy to cut up and put on Twitter?
The parlay thing is interesting. First, let me answer, do we do cash outs? In Las Vegas and Nevada, we do not. But we run in other states. We're in about 7 or 8 other states and other jurisdictions. And, obviously we don't run brick and mortar retail spots. We run a mobile. But, yeah, we do that in those type of states because that's kind of just the appetite in all these new states and all these other, operators are doing. So, obviously, we got to be with the times in that. And, I've heard you guys talk. Listen, when someone's offering you a cash out option, it's probably good for them and not good for you.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And listen, and if that's the way people want to bet, I never am like, listen, I'm a bettor too. I get it. Like, there's times I want to take a profit or I want to hedge or I want to do things, to make sure, I can live to bet another day or whatever the case may be. So I'm never going to sit here and say, don't bet the way you want to bet or whatever. But listen, there's a reason we put out 5 or 6 parlay teaser cards every Saturday and Sunday. We want those bets. I mean, that's the bottom line. Like, if 1 or 2 people hit a weekend, that's fine. That's, we'll keep putting them out. We're never going to stop doing it.
No, and of course, when you're talking about the 3-teamer, like, if you're going to cash out a 3-teamer, bet a 2-teamer. If you're going to cash out a 5-teamer, bet 4-teamers. It's like, that's the one that I don't understand. People are like, okay, I'm going to cash it out. This bet that I already made, well, then you made the bet wrong. Now you're giving the house an extra edge. Art, great information each and every week. We love having you on this show to close out Fridays. Anything else you want to say before we leave you for the weekend? Yeah,
I mean, listen, guys, as always, Westgate, come down, check us out. this is the time of year we're in full swing, and as I always tell people when they step into the West Gate, and if they ever have any questions about anything, how do I get into the theater? How do I get seats? Where are the sheets? How do I sign up for the app? Whatever the case may be, you can always go to a frontline supervisor, ticket writer, whoever. Ask for me. I'm usually there, and if I'm there, ask for me, and I'll be more than happy to pop out and give you a couple of minutes and help you out.
Art DiCesare, what a pleasure. Man, we love having you on, Art. It's my favorite segment of the week, brother, and I'm so appreciate it. And just for the record, I do parlays. I only do money line parlays, though. I only do money line parlays. Last week, I released Washington and Minnesota on the money line as a parlay. So I'm not like radically opposed to the concept, but I don't like ATS or totals parlays there. Art, honestly, what a pleasure, man. Just brilliant, brilliant stuff. Teddy Covers, do you have a hard stop, or can I talk about some other stuff for a few minutes?
Do you have a presidential address you want to do, or are we there yet?
I do. But before I want to get into that real quick, one of our listeners writes, I'm surprised all the handicappers aren't gray. Brother, most of them are bald.
They will be.
Yeah. It's either bald or gray. And the interesting thing about it is I left poker last night, and I want to use that opportunity to make this statement. I left poker last night, and I was in a foul mood. I had a shitty night playing poker. I needed Justin Jefferson to get a touchdown, and he fumbles the damn ball at the goal line. I'm off that Texas Tech loss from last week, and on and blah and blah and blah. What we do sucks. And I know all you people are jealous. Oh, you get to bet for a living, blah, 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 blah. I lose my shit every night, even when I'm winning, Teddy. And people are like, how do you lose your shit when you're winning? Because the journey to winning is where I lose my shit. I don't wait till the end of the game to lose my shit. My shit is being lost the minute the game begins. Every night at 7 p.m., I am riddled with anxiety. I am anxious. I am frustrated. This is the lot that I and Teddy have chose. So why yes, we should either all be gray or all be bald. And as a bettor, it's easy to not watch the games. Put your bets in, go to bed, hang out, watch TV, blah, blah, blah. As a host of a show, as a person who does radio, as a person who's done TV for many years, you have to watch the games. It's very hard to come on here and talk and give you guys great content if we're blindly betting and then crashing it before the games. You're not even looking, waking up in the morning and checking out scores. I wish that was the case. It isn't. So, yes, we should all be either gray or bald. Before the presidential address, anything to add there?
No.
Teddy? Okay.
I don't know.
There we go.
Do I have anything to add? No. I came out to Vegas. I had a couple gray hairs, but it wasn't like this. But this came after my son was born, because then there's a different kind of pressure.
Yeah.
I mean,
anyway,
really, my hair was still, sorry, presidential address. Lawrence, go.
Okay, we'll do it. Dan, cue it up, baby. Okay, guys, it's time for your presidential address. I've got 3 NFL plays I will give out today on this show. Before I get into that, I want to make mention that I have a promo code PREZ3, PREZ3. You get 3-day all access for only $49. And I need you guys to know, I have a side bet up for Sunday. I only have one side bet. I very rarely release side bets. Since the start of last football season, I am 21-8. 21-8. 72% in all ATS bets I have released to my clients. That is a sick record. It's up now. It's only $15. Make sure to use that promo code PREZ3. Get all my college, get all my NFL. Let's go. Okay, what do I like this weekend? I like Miami and New England over the total. I think the Miami wide receivers, and Teddy spoke about it either privately or on the show, they're unguardable. And we have seen that New England can move the ball. Mac Jones put the ball in the air 54 times last week. I like the over in that game. I like the New York Giants. I'm still trying to decide whether to take them in Survivor, but I will likely take Buffalo. But I like the New York Giants minus the 4. And I also like the Green Bay Packers to win that game. Teddy, Art, Andy, Ralph, thank you all. I hope you have a wonderful, amazing weekend. We'll see you Monday. Lots of love. Teddy, take us home.
Enjoy the games and good luck. Cheers.